Discovered the woman I'm dating is married, so I informed her husband and then ghosted her. I thought I was falling for someone special, someone genuine. We met casually through mutual friends, and the chemistry between us was undeniable. Everything about her seemed perfect, charming, intelligent, and beautiful. We spent time together, shared laughs, and even talked about the future. It felt like I had finally found someone who truly understood me. But one day, everything changed. Something felt off. It wasn't her, but a nagging feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. After a bit of digging, I uncovered something that shattered the image of her I had built. The woman I had been dating was not only hiding a secret, but it was a secret I never saw coming. She was married to someone else. Her entire life was a lie. At first, I couldn't believe it. How could I have been so blind? But what was even more surprising was what happened next. I decided to confront her and her husband. The aftermath would change everything, and I would find myself in a position I never expected. I had always been cautious about relationships. After a few failed attempts in the past, I had learned to guard my heart. But when I met her, I couldn't help but let my guard down. She was everything I thought I needed. From the moment we met, there was an undeniable chemistry. She had this magnetic energy that drew me in, and I found myself opening up to her in a way I had never done before. We shared our dreams, our fears, and everything in between. We spent hours talking, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. It felt too good to be true, and for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to believe in something real. She was a woman of mystery in many ways, and I found that intriguing. She was independent, driven, and seemed to have it all together. But at the same time, there was this softness to her that made me feel needed. We made plans for the future, talked about the places we wanted to visit, and fantasized about building a life together. Every moment with her felt like a new adventure, and I cherished the time we spent together. It felt like I had finally found someone who truly understood me, who appreciated me for who I was. But as time passed, the cracks began to show. Small things at first, discrepancies in her stories, moments when she seemed distracted, and conversations that felt a little too rehearsed. She would often disappear for hours without explanation, and whenever I asked her about it, she would offer vague responses or tell me that she had been busy with work or other personal matters. I wanted to believe her, I really did. But deep down, something didn't sit right. There was a sense of secrecy about her life that made me question everything. But I brushed it off, telling myself I was overthinking things. Still, that nagging feeling never quite went away. I knew I had to find out what was really going on. As our relationship progressed, I started noticing more red flags. She was always on her phone, but never in a way that felt innocent. She would receive texts late at night or early in the morning, and she would immediately turn the screen away when I was nearby. I tried not to read too much into it. After all, she was a successful, independent woman with a busy life. But the little things kept adding up. The way she would suddenly change the subject when I asked about her day, how she would avoid answering certain questions, and the way she always seemed to be hiding something. It wasn't like her to be secretive, and it made me uneasy. But there was one moment that changed everything. One evening, we were at her place, enjoying a quiet night in. She had left her phone on the kitchen counter while she went to take a shower. I should have respected her privacy, but I couldn't help myself. My curiosity got the best of me. I picked up her phone, and without thinking, I started scrolling through her messages. What I found shook me to my core. There were dozens of messages between her and another man, and as I dug deeper, I realized that this wasn't just a fling or a casual affair. It was something much more serious. The messages were full of intimacy, longing, and promises for the future. They were planning trips together, talking about their next steps, and sharing private moments. What hit me the hardest was the realization that this wasn't just some random guy, it was her husband. She had been married the entire time, and she had been lying to me about her entire life. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My heart raced as the betrayal hit me all at once. Everything she had told me about her past, about her commitments, was a lie. I had been manipulated, deceived, and used, all while believing I was the only one. I felt disgusted, heartbroken, and completely betrayed. The woman I had trusted with my heart had been living a double life, and I had been nothing more than a pawn in her game. The moment I saw the messages, it felt like the world had shifted beneath me. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Her words were full of warmth and affection for this man who wasn't me. The way they spoke to each other, the intimacy in their texts, it was clear that this wasn't just a casual fling. They were talking about meeting up, planning trips together, and sharing their future hopes and dreams. It was as if she had been living two lives all along, one with me and another with him. The betrayal hit me like a ton of bricks. I couldn't sit there any longer. My hands trembled as I put the phone down and stepped away from the kitchen counter. I tried to calm myself, but the anger and hurt were overwhelming. My mind raced as I tried to make sense of what I had just uncovered. How could she do this to me? How could she lie to my face and make me believe that we were building something meaningful together? I had trusted her with everything, and now I was left with nothing but lies and deceit. I needed to confront her, but I didn't want to do it out of anger. I wanted to be calm, collected, and rational. I thought about everything she had told me over the past few months, how she had been working late, how she had been too busy to spend time with me. I realized now that all of it had been nothing more than excuses. She had been sneaking around behind my back, and I had been blind to it. I spent the next few days in a state of disbelief, trying to process the information. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. I couldn't keep this to myself. I needed to do something. I had to tell her husband. He deserved to know the truth. But at the same time, I knew that this revelation would completely shatter his world, just as it had shattered mine. I decided to take action. I called him. It wasn't easy. My hands were shaking as I dialed the number I had found in her phone. When he picked up, I hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to say. But then I found my voice. "I need to tell you something about your wife," I said, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. "She's been cheating on you with me." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear him breathing heavily, as if he was processing the words I had just said. Finally he spoke. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice full of disbelief. "This isn't a joke, is it?" "No," I replied. "I'm not joking. I have proof. She's been seeing me behind your back for months now. I don't know what else to say. You deserve to know the truth." There was another silence, this one longer than the last. I could hear him muttering something under his breath, but I couldn't make out the words. It was clear he was struggling to process the information. After a few moments, he spoke again. "I don't know what to say," he said, his voice cracking. "I never suspected anything. I thought everything was fine. But now, I don't know what to do." "I'm sorry," I said, feeling a strange mix of sympathy and anger. "I didn't want to hurt you, but you need to know." We spoke for a few more minutes, exchanging more details and confirming the reality of the situation. As I hung up the phone, I felt a strange sense of relief. I had done the right thing. He deserved to know the truth, just as I had deserved to know. But I also knew that this wasn't over. I had to confront her next. The next few days were tense. She seemed oblivious to the fact that I knew everything. She continued to act as if nothing had changed, as if nothing had been uncovered. But I could feel the tension in the air whenever she was around. I was no longer pretending. I wasn't going to sit there and play along with her lies. Finally, the day came when I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't wait any longer. I called her, and we arranged to meet at her place. When I arrived, she greeted me with that same fake smile, the one she always wore. But this time, I didn't return the smile. I was cold, calculating, and determined. I walked past her and sat down on the couch without saying a word. "What's going on?" she asked, sensing the shift in my demeanor. "You're acting strange." "I know what you've been doing," I said, my voice firm. "I know about the affair. I know everything." Her face immediately drained of color. For a moment, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. But then, she quickly recovered, attempting to act nonchalant. "What are you talking about?" she asked, feigning confusion. "I don't know what you mean." "You don't have to lie anymore," I said, showing her the messages I had saved from her phone. "I know everything. I know about him, and I know about the lies you've been telling me." She took a step back, clearly flustered. "You don't understand," she began. "It wasn't like that. I never meant for it to go this far." I didn't want to hear her excuses. I had heard enough. I had given her my trust, and she had shattered it. I wasn't interested in listening to her explanations anymore. I stood up and walked towards the door. "You need to leave," I said, my voice cold. "I can't do this anymore. I'm done." She tried to stop me, but I didn't give her a chance. I walked out of her apartment, leaving behind everything. Her lies, her deceit, and the relationship that I thought I had. As I left, I knew that I had made the right decision. I had caught her in the act, exposed her for who she really was, and freed myself from the chains of her betrayal. The aftermath of my confrontation with her was a strange mixture of relief and confusion. I had finally confronted the truth. I had exposed her, and yet, a part of me could not shake off the feeling of emptiness. I thought the truth would feel like a weight lifted off my shoulders, but instead, it left me with a hollow ache. I had caught her, yes, but in doing so, I had shattered a part of myself that I had once believed in. As the days passed, I saw her reach out, trying to call and text, but I ignored it all. I had made my decision. There was nothing left to salvage. However, what followed was something I had not expected. Weeks passed, and just as I had moved on, I noticed a strange shift in her behavior. She began sending me increasingly desperate messages. At first, it was simple apologies. "I'm sorry for what happened. I was confused. I made a mistake." But as time went on, the messages grew more intense. She spoke of regret, of how she had lost everything, and how she wished she could undo the past. I began to wonder if this was just her trying to manipulate me, trying to turn the tables and make me feel guilty. But as I read her words, something about them felt different. She seemed genuinely torn, vulnerable even. It was as if the facade she had built around herself had crumbled, and I was seeing her for who she truly was, a woman overwhelmed by her own mistakes. At the same time, I started to realize something about myself. The anger that had once burned inside me was slowly fading, replaced by a strange sense of empathy. Perhaps it was because I had been so deeply hurt by her actions, but I could not ignore the part of me that still felt for her, despite everything. I had been betrayed, yes, but I had loved her, and love, even in its most broken form, does not simply disappear overnight. But despite the empathy that lingered, I knew I couldn't go back. I had learned the hardest lesson of my life. Trust could not be rebuilt so easily, not after what had happened. I was no longer the man who had stood by her side, believing in the future we had once planned. That person was gone. So, I made the decision to go even further. I blocked her on all social media platforms and changed my phone number. I wasn't going to allow her to manipulate me into returning to the past. As painful as it was, I had to sever all ties. I had learned that sometimes, the only way to heal is to let go completely. However, my journey didn't end there. One evening as I was leaving work, I received an unexpected call. It was from a number I didn't recognize, but I picked up anyway. Hello. I answered cautiously, unsure of what to expect. Is this my name? A man's voice asked. It was calm, controlled, but there was an underlying tension to it. I'm her husband's name. I'm not sure if you remember me, but we spoke a while ago. A wave of cold dread washed over me. Her husband? Why was he calling me now? Yes, I remember you, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. What's going on? I need to talk to you about something, he said. I know this is going to sound strange, but I've been thinking a lot about what happened. My wife, she's been asking me for forgiveness, asking me to give her another chance. She's completely broken, and I'm just trying to understand what happened. I could hear the sadness in his voice. It was clear that he was still hurting, still grappling with the betrayal. But what shocked me the most was how differently he seemed to be handling everything. He wasn't angry. He wasn't trying to blame anyone. Instead, it seemed like he was trying to understand. I didn't know what to say. How could I possibly give him advice? I had my own wounds to deal with, and now here he was, reaching out for answers. I don't know what to tell you, I said honestly. All I can say is that what happened between me and your wife was real. She betrayed both of us, and I know it's hard to accept. But you have to ask yourself if you want to stay in a relationship that was built on lies. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear him taking a deep breath, as though he was considering my words. I just don't know if I can move on from this, he admitted. I don't know if I can forgive her. I understand, I said quietly. I think it's a decision only you can make. I can't tell you what to do. But I do know that forgiveness doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. And I think you need to ask yourself if you can live with this, if you can trust her again. There was another silence before he spoke again. Thank you for your honesty, he said, his voice softer now. I don't think I've been able to hear anyone say it like that before. We hung up shortly after that, and I sat there, staring at my phone, feeling like I had been caught in the middle of a situation that was bigger than I could have ever imagined. I had exposed the truth, but now, I had inadvertently become part of someone else's healing process. The entire experience left me questioning everything I had known about relationships, trust, and forgiveness. As for her, she never contacted me again. After I had blocked her, she seemed to accept that things were over between us. I never knew what happened with her marriage, but I hoped that, in time, they would find a way to heal. As for me, the journey had just begun. I realized that while I had been betrayed and hurt, I had also learned the importance of valuing myself. I had taken control of my life once again, and although it had been painful, it had been the most empowering decision I had ever made. The weeks that followed were both unexpectedly empowering and challenging. When I had made the decision to walk away from her, I had no idea how deeply it would impact me. Despite the sense of betrayal and the overwhelming emotions, a strange peace settled within me. I had stood up for myself, and in doing so, I had taken control of my life. I had imagined that moving on would be simple, that once I severed the connection, things would get easier. But the truth was far from that. In the quiet moments, when the reality of the situation sank in, I could feel the absence of her in my life. For years, we had shared memories, experiences, and plans for the future. Now all of that was gone. It was strange and painful to let go of something that had once seemed so solid. But in the midst of those moments of doubt, I reminded myself of why I had made this choice. I had been lied to. I had been manipulated, and most of all, I had been disrespected. The trust that had once been the foundation of our relationship had been shattered, and no amount of regret from her could undo the damage that had been done. As the days turned into weeks, I started to feel a shift within myself. I was no longer consumed by the hurt or the anger. Instead, I began to realize how much better my life could be without her. I had spent so much of my energy trying to salvage something that was beyond repair. But now, with the weight of her lies lifted from my shoulders, I felt freer than I had in years. I threw myself into work. It was a place where I could focus and channel my energy into something productive. I began to notice the small victories, projects completed, goals achieved, and praise from colleagues. It felt good to succeed, to prove to myself that I could thrive even in the face of betrayal. But I also realized that this success was not just a result of my hard work. It was a direct outcome of the mental and emotional space I had freed up by walking away from her. Several months passed, and one day, I received an unexpected phone call from my boss. It was a call I had not seen coming. After discussing my recent performance, they told me that I was being considered for a promotion. It was an opportunity that I had not anticipated, yet it was the recognition I had been working toward for years. I had earned it not just through my professional accomplishments, but through the personal growth I had undergone during this difficult time. I could not help but smile as I thought about how far I had come. A year ago, I was devastated, questioning my worth and wondering if I could ever recover from the heartbreak. But now, here I was, standing on the brink of a new opportunity. It was clear that in some strange way, her betrayal had propelled me toward a better version of myself. Throughout this period, I heard sporadic updates from her husband. He would occasionally reach out to share how things were going in their marriage. He had tried to salvage their relationship, but it was clear that it was a slow and painful process. The trust between them was fractured, and while they were working through it, the damage had left its scars. I never reached out to her. I had made it clear that I was done. She had made her choices, and now it was time for both of us to face the consequences. There were no angry confrontations, no dramatic exchanges. It was simply over. She had to deal with the fallout of her actions, just as I was doing. I had no place in her life anymore, and I did not want one. The months that followed only strengthened my resolve. I had moved on, and with each passing day, I could feel myself becoming more confident, more certain of the path I had chosen. I was no longer the person who allowed others to dictate my happiness. I had learned that self-respect and boundaries were non-negotiable. And then one day, I received an email that shook me to my core. It was from her. The message was brief, but it carried a weight that I could feel in every word. She apologized. She admitted to her mistakes and expressed deep regret for what she had done. She acknowledged the pain she had caused and said that she had realized her actions were driven by her own insecurities. It was a humbling moment, one that I had never expected. I could tell that she was genuinely remorseful, but at the same time, I felt no desire to go back. Her apology was important, but it did not change what had happened. I had moved on. The person who I had been during our relationship no longer existed. I had grown, learned, and emerged stronger than ever before. I did not respond to her email. There was nothing left to say. She had made her choices, and now it was my turn to make mine. I had no place for her in my life anymore, and I could not let the past pull me backward. As the months continued to pass, I focused on my career and personal growth. The promotion I had earned was just the beginning. I was more motivated than ever to continue achieving, to keep pushing myself to be better. The pain from the past had faded, replaced by a sense of purpose and a clear vision of where I wanted my life to go. Looking back on everything that had happened, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Not for the heartbreak or the betrayal, but for the lessons I had learned. I had learned the value of self-worth, the importance of knowing when to walk away, and the power of choosing my own path. My life was mine to control, and no one would ever take that from me again. If you found this story intriguing, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more eye-opening stories. Don't forget to press the bell icon so you never miss a new video.